What's up, guys? Back here with me, Kevin Whaley, and Scott. Here at another session of coffee with a security leader.
That's
Today
right.
we are going to be talking about the different types of jobs that you can get into in the security field. We had one of our I wouldn't say followers, but maybe the person who just kind of maybe stumbled across our video and maybe watched it because they were bored.
Took pity on
So
us.
yeah, I took video on us and watched it. No, I had a great idea about just talking about the
Good.
different career options in the security field. So that's kind of what we're going to be touching on today. And I know Scott and I, we have worked various roles within the industry. So I think we'll be able to have a good, well-rounded conversation about this and
Yeah.
hopefully be able to share some great information. So,
Well, not
Scott, if you want to
everybody
start.
and not everybody who has not worked in these fields really understands what we go through on a daily basis. What does that day to day look like? Especially folks who maybe come from the government. Your time in the military, my time in the military was way different than maybe our corporate security world. And
Yeah.
the day to day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a way to, really describe your day-to-day job in security because it's always different, right? For me,
Sure.
as a head of security for my company, my days are never the same. It's always something different. It just kind of depends on what we have going on. I might be focusing on a whole bunch of my administrative tasks that I have to do, but hey, then something might happen that I have to, kind of drop everything what I'm doing and go handle this situation. Um, so there really is no typical day to day in my life as a security manager.
Do
But
you
again,
manage guard force as well, or is it just
yeah,
programs?
typically, yeah,
I should say
typically,
just.
yeah,
That's it.
typically, yeah, so for someone in my role, I would say, your job responsibilities is, if your company has a guard force, managing them, making sure they're trained and have all their certifications, reviewing policies and procedures, making sure all your systems are up and running, uh, possibly conducting investigations. It really just kind of depends on how big or small a team you have. So
That's right.
in my example,
Resources
yeah,
are important.
yeah, resources are a big thing. So um, if you have the resources to do all these different things, then great. But if you're with a smaller company that maybe has a smaller security department, you're going to have your hands in everything. So
Yeah, I
um,
think that's important to point out. Like, your corporate security experience and mine are a little different. I came from the tech world, working for NVIDIA. You work for a financial services company, and so um, although there's a lot of component parts that I think are similar, which is kind of cool. You have guard force. We had a guard force. You probably have a GSOC or SOC or some type of
mhm.
dispatch where cameras are. We had that as well, and um, there's some similarities there. But I don't know about you. I mean, tactically, I would try and plan what I was going to do, you know, into the future as much as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah,
And then to your point, depending on the day or the email or the need of your leadership, that could dictate, what you're doing. But one of the things I did, I kind of have a story behind this as well. But when I was the senior manager at NVIDIA, I was responsible for a bunch of programs. Investigations, EP were programs I was responsible for, as well as the security functions in the United States throughout the Americas. And so, on any given day, there was a crisis somewhere in
yeah,
my area of
yeah.
responsibility. But one of our big kind of challenges was headquarters. So
Hmm.
NVIDIA is headquartered in Santa Clara, California, and I had I don't know, maybe 30 or so contract security folks who worked for me or for us through a security vendor.
Hmm.
And so one of the things I would do, because you're responsible as a security leader, and I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on this as well, but a lot of people don't realize is that you're responsible for all of the money that's spent on all those different security apparatus. And so what we call guard force, if you will, those security vendors, you're responsible for making sure are they spending the money that you're provided them wisely. If they say they have, 6 officers on swing shift and they're
Hmm.
billing you for 6 officers, well, you better find 6 officers. And so I would usually in the morning, for one of the first things I did was to kind of review the logs, review camera footage, if anything happened the night while I was gone.
Hmm.
And normally, as the America's leader, if something's going down that rises to the concern of, hey, we got to call police, or we had a medical, or we had a fire alarm or something, they're going to notify you anyways. I'm going to get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, we had,
Yeah.
we just dumped a building, or we literally have had armed robbery suspects running through campus because we had a very large campus, a whole bunch of buildings
Yeah.
across 2 kind of major areas. And so, we get calls like that. But for the minor things, I just want to know, like, kind of how the previous shifts went, swing shift and graveyard shift. And so then I would review security footage and things like that, and just kind of
Hmm.
randomly, like, poke around and look at badge logs, see if I notice anything that would be concerning to me, like the same person going into the same building with kind of some weird frequency or something.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found one night or one morning when reviewing footage from the previous night was one of my security supervisors was helping a security officer with a report. And we had some cameras in certain kind of break room areas that the officer was writing a report, and there was the sergeant right there sitting with him and mentoring him through this. And that gave me a lot of pride. That sergeant has now moved on and is a police officer in the Bay Area. And when we hired him and he came to work for us, it was to be in a different position that
Hmm.
I couldn't fit him into, but I wanted him because I sensed he had a lot to offer our organization. And so I said, look, the only thing I can promise you is that I'll work with you, and I'll help. If we can get you into other roles in our organization, we'll do that. And he
Yeah.
had been working in a different organization before coming to us, and he was in kind of a premium spot there. So I get him to come over with us, and sure enough, I see this kind of dedication that he has to the people that he's responsible for. And I eventually moved him up the ranks, and he promoted up and took over greater and greater roles, and became one of my investigators. And he's a great guy, and I think very highly of him to this day. But those are the kind of things that I was looking for. A lot of people in our leadership or not, our kind of security leaders may look for opportunities to kind of burn their officers or burn the people that are working for them. That wasn't my motivation ever. My
Yeah.
motivation was to look for these great acts that maybe I wouldn't even notice because I'm not there, and promote
Yeah.
that and go out there and say, hey, folks, this person did a great job, and I want to
Yeah. Exactly.
support that. I don't know if
Yeah, and I think
you have something similar like that.
no, absolutely. I mean, and I think kind of think you hit the nail on the head. Obviously not everyone is trying to burn people, but I definitely did notice that a lot. With the third party security guard services, and that's where I started off after I got out of the military and I was in graduate school. And I knew I wanted to get into the security industry, the corporate security world. Didn't know how, so I was like, okay, well, I started off as a security officer. Well, I was able to meet so many contacts that was, that's kind of how I got my foothold in the industry and moved my way up. But I just remember my experiences as a security officer, and it's just like, man, it's a tough, thankless job. It is. A lot of people see it as, oh, they're just lazy and whatever. It's like, no, a lot of these people are great. They're really good at what they do and they care. But unfortunately, they just get a bad rap. But kind of getting back on topic there, um, yeah, it's like the days are always different. It all just kind of depends on what someone wants to do with their career. For me, for example, when I got out of the military, I was like, oh well, I'm gonna maybe try to apply for, maybe some sort of federal job or something like that. And I did, and I got a couple opportunities, but unfortunately, life circumstances, I had to turn it down. And I was like, okay, well, corporate security, let's, see what that's like. And as I made contacts and started asking questions, I discovered how many different roles there are in the
Right.
security field that I'd never really realized before. It just kind of all depends on what you're wanting to do. So, like, you could be an investigator and you're solely focused on conducting investigations for a company, or it could be maybe a security specialist, in which you're kind of like, in a almost like a management role, but you're kind of in charge of security for a certain area. You're not necessarily a security guard, but you're doing security for that company. There's facility security officers, FSOs. Those it's a high demand job, especially for companies that have government contracts. It's a required role. So there's just so many different things you can do. So after the military and all that, I was fortunate enough, I got to do some private military work, which was a lot of fun. And then during my time, kind of moving up the corporate security world, I got to get some great experiences in other worlds. I've gotten to do quite a bit of executive protection work, which was a lot of fun. I learned so much from those guys, the guys that do that every day. I mean, hats off to them, because I already knew it was a tough job, because there's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize.
That's right.
You see all these people that claim that they're bodyguards or executive protection specialists, and they're kind of clowns, but there's a lot that goes into it. And those experiences, I was like, oh man, this is great. I love doing that. But, since it's so fast paced and you're always on the move, I was like, well, family
Hard to
and
have a
settling
family.
down. So kind of want to hang out. So, that's why I didn't pursue that career. But, yeah, it just really often kind of depends on what you want to do. And then there's also, like, the electronic security side of things. If you want to work in security, maybe you can, work for one of the security system companies, and kind of being a sales representative, or maybe an engineer working on their security systems and developing new security technology. It's such huge demand right now, and has been for years, but especially now with just how fast technology is expanding, and we've really literally we just can't keep up with it all. There's always something new coming out. So yeah, it just really all depends on what you want to do. But like in your experiences, you know, outside of your last company, what else have you kind of seen and gone through in your during your career?
Yeah, very similar. Kind of depended on the day, especially as a security leader. When you're in charge of all these different programs, like I was, and then I had an area of responsibility, and I was responsible for global investigations. So if I got a call from our security leader in India on a mission, I uh, they the my folks in India were not as diligent with investigations as maybe American or European counterparts, and so I would take more time to kind of mentor them through the investigations process.
Mm.
And the interesting thing about working investigations, kind of, or let's say managing investigations around the world, is depending on the time zone, they're going to be up when you're down, and
Yeah.
you kind of have to be flexible to what they're working on. At least as a leader, that's how I did it. I tried not to keep them up late in the evening or early in the morning. Same thing with our folks in Asia Pacific. I would take more time as my background, military and law enforcement, was in investigations. So I had kind of a way that I wanted them to be thinking about these things. So I took a lot more time walking them through, the investigative process, doing interviews, documentation. Securing evidence was a big thing. Um, I think very highly of the security team that I worked with at NVIDIA, and one of my most proud moments was I got a call 10 o'clock at night. There'd been a burglary from one of our parking areas, and they'd called me and told me about it, and I said, okay, great, you do what you've been trained to do. And we'd actually trained them in evidence collection and kind of scene documentation because we had other burglaries that happened on campus, and so I wanted them to be proficient at it. And they'd notified law enforcement and done all those things. Law enforcement is only going to do so much. We could do more. We had more resources. We have cameras. We have all these things. Now we, of course, share with our law enforcement partners everything we find, but they're not always motivated to be diligent as we're going to be. So I gave it probably 30 minutes, and I couldn't contain myself, and so I headed down to the campus late at night to go see how it was going and just see what they were up to, and not to check up on them as much as I just wanted to see if what we had taught them had grabbed a gear. And sure enough, I showed up and they were photographing and they had the measuring implements out, and
great.
They were doing everything that they had the equipment to do. And I was proud of that, and I didn't get in their way. And I said, tag and bag what you think you need to tag and bag, and I'll review it in the morning. But, when you give folks that kind of level of freedom and autonomy to make decisions, even when they make mistakes, that's okay. As long as nobody really gets hurt and we don't have a great loss. I'm not going to grind them on collecting evidence. I want to let them go and do that, and then let's see how it goes. And then if there's anything we need to tweak, anything we need to do, I'm going to kind of handle that, or let their supervisors handle that.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. I mean, I think it's just so important to make sure that you are getting into the security world and you're learning, new things for the first time, or, you're the one who's bringing new people in. It's so important to train people to the policies and procedures. Hey, these are the policies, this is how we expect it, and also train them to your expectations. Because, and obviously there's always going to be a little difference in procedures, just depending on personal preference. But when I was at my previous company, one of my last few months there, I was managing a guard force of like 40 some odd people, and they made mistakes. It's like, it's okay. It's like if they hadn't been trained on it, I'm not going to fault them. I'll go to their account manager like, hey, why aren't these guys trained on that?
That's right.
Or if they don't have it, it's like, hey, okay, let's get this going. Let's get this trained. But I'm not going to dog on someone for a mistake they make if they don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's like, hey, we got to teach them. So right. I think that's a great point.
I like setting expectations, especially because you're dealing with a contract force and you can only do so much, to your point, right? You don't want to be quote unquote supervising them. And so I like to set expectations, to your point, with that account manager, and then audit maybe is a too strong a word, but audit to those expectations and just kind of check to make sure things are landing and things are sticking. And so that when the big thing happens, the balloon goes up, and something tragic happens, that they operate the way they should.
Yeah.
Does that take time and energy? Sure. I don't know, and looking back on it now as a consultant, I don't know that I would have done some of the things that I did. I made mistakes. I'll give you an example. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I will. When I first came out of the Gov and started working at NVIDIA, I wanted them, the officers, to be safe, right, as they went about their duties. And so I took it upon myself to go and do training for them that was like officer safety type training. And looking back on it, I don't know that I would be the one to actually give the training. I think it's more appropriate that you empower, set standards for your vendor. And
developing those SLAs.
That's exactly right. SLAs, KPIs, whatever they are. Get that in writing. Get that into the contract before you contract with them and before they're providing services. Because it's hard when you're, and this is a great thing to talk about in contract security. When you request them to change something fundamental in that contract, that's a change order. That actually could cost you money, right, depending on the contract. And so I'd done a bunch of kind of officer safety type training for them. And I don't know that I would go back and do, well, I know I would not go back and do that for a contractor who was working for me. I would set the standard and then expect them to execute to the standard. And if they didn't, we can work through the contract process to kind of
Yeah.
to fix those things. But
Yeah.
that's my learning moment. You know, I had never worked with contract security before, and I was only concerned that they'd be safe while they were out there.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
came from a good place, you know, came from the right place. I just poor execution on my part, really bad execution. I wouldn't do that again.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if you had any
Yeah. It
experience.
happens though. You know, it happens. There's learning experiences. I mean, I think I learned the the knowledge I have today, I can attribute most to when I was a security consultant at my previous company. I remember when the job requisition came out, and I actually knew someone at that company. He was the director of corporate security at the time, so it wasn't his division; it was a different group. But I told him, I was like, "Hey, I applied for this," and he's like, "Okay, well, hey, I'll send your name over." And they called me for an interview, and I, met the guy who would be my future boss, and I didn't have the experience they were looking for because they were looking for someone who could be a consultant. But he saw, that, hey, former military, security officer, I'm trying to get in. I'm looking for someone to give me that chance. And he gave me that chance. He's, still one of my greatest friends to this day. We still talk all the time. But I learned so much being a consultant because I got to go work on so many different types of security projects in every industry. I
Right.
did security projects for hospitals, colleges, critical infrastructure, electric utilities, nuclear power plants, a couple of three-letter agencies. You name it, we got to do it. And it wasn't just like conducting security assessments, which was a big part of it. I mean, that was like our bread and butter. But system design and implementation, developing a program roadmap. One of the clients I worked for, they had a security director. That person quit, and they had already hired us to come in and do an assessment. Well, when the director quit, we actually augmented that position, and I actually augmented that position for a little bit with another one of my coworkers. But those years I was a consultant, I learned so much about the security industry because I got to work in all those different fields, all those different various industries, and learning about, the different regulations and laws and that are in place and industry standards for the different industries. Because people think, security, it's pretty cookie cutter across the board. It's like, well, no, it's not. It's going to be different at each location. It doesn't matter if it's the same company. If it's a different location, your security is going to be different. Yeah, the skeleton of it's going to be the same, but it's got to be tweaked for everything you do. So I really, really love that job. And then when I moved into this position, which I love, but I got to build a security program from the ground up, which was amazing. But I think it's important to, for those who aren't very familiar with the security world, or at least the corporate security world, to know that it's a lot of it sounds sexy, but a lot of it is just a lot of office work, a lot of paperwork,
Yeah.
a lot of
Well,
sitting at a
especially
computer.
like you said, you're building a program. I mean,
Exactly.
the component parts that go into a security program are, we could maybe do a whole episode.
So that could be a whole nother episode.
You're talking about standards, you're talking about policies and procedures, you're talking about technology, and all of that has to be, you can't build one building if you have a multi-building or a company where you're responsible for multiple buildings. You can't have different standards everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I need 3 badges when I work here because every building I go to is different. That's a nightmare. Most people coming out of law enforcement maybe don't quite have that appreciation yet. They will. They go into physical security.
Yeah.
They will.
Yeah. No kidding.
They'll understand what it means when you have Linnell badge access on one property,
Yeah.
and you have a different badge access
Yeah.
on another property, or you have different cameras and different systems, and nothing's integrated. That's the nightmare
exactly.
scenario. Did your company go through any kind of absorption of other businesses or acquire any other businesses when it
They
was
did
growing?
before. Yeah, they did before I got there. So by the time I came aboard, it was kind of all, everything was kind of in place in a way. In turn, like they had a video system and they had an alarm system and an access control system. But that was really it. So,
Wow.
but nothing was tied together or anything like that. So, yeah, coming in and figuring out, okay, hey, I had to start, just starting learning, hey, what's this company about? What's the culture like? What are our business objectives as a company? What are the expectations? And then once I'm able to figure all that out and, meet with key stakeholders and executives and start building those relationships, like then I was able to start building the program because then I could model it off of what the business objectives were, what the company expectations were, what the culture was like, the op tempo, everything. So, but yeah, it's a lot of brainstorming and a lot of paperwork. So,
Well,
but
and
it's a
sometimes,
ton of fun. I enjoy it every day. I mean, that's why I tell people whenever we do security orientation for our new employees. I tell them, like, I love my job. I love coming to work every day. I mean, do I really love it every day? Like, oh yeah, awesome. No, there's going to be slow days. There's going to be boring days. There are days where I'm like, I don't want to be here. But I love what I do. I love that fact that I get to come in and I get to help people every day. I get to, just do what I love. So
which is
it's a
different
lot of
every day.
fun.
Yeah, and you
Exactly.
walked
It's,
into no program, essentially, and you had to build
yes.
it. So you owned it. This is
Yeah.
something that you built, and you have a lot of pride, I'm sure, in that, and that's why you enjoy what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah. But again, I definitely don't think I could have done it without my previous experience as a consultant because again, we actually built programs for other uh, clients, and it was funny though being on the other side of that, being on the end user side. I was so used to being like, hey, okay, here's what we think is, the issues are, here's why they're the issues, blah blah blah. Here's our recommendations. See you later. What's
Yeah,
like now? It's like, oh
exactly.
wait, no, I've got
Now
to,
you own it. Yeah,
I've
you
I've got
own
to
that
I've got to
decision.
have I've got to have a consultant hat on, and then after I'm done with that part, I got to go put my security leader hat on and be like, okay, from a business perspective, how does this look?
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's an important distinction too, right? Everything that we do as business leaders, and I think that's our primary objective. I'd like to think that safety and protection that's our product.
Yeah,
The sense of security that the employees and customers and visitors have. That's what we're trying to accomplish, but we have to do it with a business mindset.
yeah.
So we're
Our
business
product is
leaders
peace of
first.
mind. Yeah,
Yeah,
our product is
yeah,
peace of mind. That's exactly what we provide. And it's different every day because what might provide peace of mind one day may not provide peace of mind the next day. So it's just
that's right.
constantly evolving. It just all depends. Our threat environment is constantly changing, and so we have to constantly adapt. To meet that. And it's a vicious cycle because as soon as we adapt, well then the bad guys adapt. Well, it's like then we have to adapt again. It's just a vicious cycle. But
Are
but
you
it's a ton of fun though.
are you responsible for emergency management too, or crisis management at your
Part of it,
company?
yeah, yeah, part of it. I'm one of the key people on that team, but we do have our risk department who they're in charge of like our business continuity
Oh,
stuff like
okay.
that. So they work on that, but so I work very very closely with them. So I developed all the like emergency procedures for like security safety related events. Obviously, if there's a hack or something, that's over my head. So
Cybersecurity. Yeah,
yeah,
you probably have a
I
team
barely
for
turn
that.
my computer. I can barely turn my computer on. So don't ask me to find out where a DOS attack is coming from or something like that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so it definitely do a lot of emergency management. I'm in charge of like our safety team, so developing like an emergency response team. So people who have basic medical, like American Red Cross or Heart
Yeah.
Association, like
Talk about that.
CPR training, AED, stuff like that.
Some people don't know what an ERT is, what they do. I
Yeah,
know they
so
said NVIDIA it was employee led. Is it employee led with you all?
yeah, employee led with us as well. So it's still kind of really new and a little bit unorganized right now at my current company. Like but again, we're a very small company. We have
Sure.
small locations. So, but at my previous company, huge. We had over 6,000 employees at the time. My office location was a 34-acre campus, with 3 buildings at the time. We had like a little over 3,000 employees in our campus alone. So the RT team there was huge, the emergency response team, and we ran drills every month. It's like, okay, hey, medical emergency here, or if it was, we also try to make some things security related. So we try to run certain drills, but all those were done very quietly, and they weren't like very public. It's not like, hey, active shooter drill, what are we doing? It's like, no.
Yeah, that gets people in trouble.
God,
If not fired.
oh my gosh, I've had people ask me, if we can do those, and I'm like, absolutely not. Like that is just trouble waiting to happen.
Yeah, maybe at like 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Like that. We'll do it then.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone come in 3 a.m. 0300. Oh, dark 30. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, but
Yeah,
I mean that's something that's interesting to talk about too. And the responsibilities around emergency management, or what I'll call just emergency management, is just very broad, and a company may not call it that. They may call it business continuity or crisis management.
yeah, yeah.
The responsibilities there are rather unique, I think. But I also think that somebody who's a veteran or comes from the public safety environment into the corporate world is uniquely suited to be successful in those situations because we see
absolutely.
things differently. But we need to remember, especially if we come out of law enforcement, we need to remember the ultimate goal of business continuity, which is to keep the business moving forward.
Exactly.
You can't say,
Yeah.
well, we're just going to shut down this business for a week. That
Doesn't work that
not
way.
going to happen. No.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. I mean, when we developed, like, when I came in and me and our business continuity manager were like really diving down into the BCP, I was just like amazed at just how much goes into it. And we have to develop timelines. Like, okay, if this system goes down, what is the acceptable amount of time that it can be down? Or if this happens, what is the acceptable? It's like, okay, or hey, we go through and we rank every single system, whether it's like an electronic system or a process or something like that. We rank everything. Like, hey, is this critical? Is it significant? Is it not significant? Okay, and then each of that has their rankings. Okay, what's the acceptable downtime? What do you need to get it back up and running? What do you need to do your job until it's back up and running? All those little details have to be thought out and planned out, carefully. So.
And then drilled.
Yeah, a lot of tabletop
procedures
exercises
for all these things. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people don't want to do procedures, which I totally understand, because once you do a procedure, it sits on a shelf and it collects dust. But I understand that. But you have to have some level of continuity. So if you're a primary, you got to have a secondary. If you're the primary IT guy for the company, great. You got to have a person who's going to back you up.
Yeah.
And if we can't find you, we can find this other person. So I'm a big fan of tabletop exercises because I think there's a relative, especially with disaster recovery or business continuity, there's a belief that like, oh, we got it, now we're good, we got this system over here, it's like it's going to work, and then you go through a process where it doesn't.
I remember doing our BCP review right before the pandemic happened, and thankfully we had our pandemic checklist in there because we reviewed that, and excellent. I remember me and our risk manager joking about it, like, oh yeah, we'll break this out. We'll break this back out when the Black Plague comes back. Not a month later, it's like, oh, now it's pandemic. We're like, holy crap! So it's like you never know when you're going to need this. So it's like you really got to kind of think outside the box to figure out what you need. So. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you were talking about, veterans and LEOs, making that transition are very well suited for this type of work. But, and as you've alluded to in some of your LEO to CEO or
security.
Law enforcement corporate security video series, like, is how important it is that you have to change that mindset from being reactive to being proactive.
Right.
So, some people are successful at it, some people aren't. It just depends on, if you're able to adapt your mindset and make those changes.
And especially with a global company. When I was at NVIDIA, that it is a global tech company with offices around the world, employees around the world. And if you don't have that kind of worldly mindset, that
Hmm.
you're not just dealing with U.S. citizens, you're dealing with people who are in the host nation. You're dealing with people who are not the same nationality as you are.
Hmm.
For example, we had a coup in Asia Pacific. I won't mention the country, and we had three traveling employees. And I asked my GSOC to get a hold of them and direct them to the closest U.S. embassy. Unfortunately, none of them were Americans.
Hmm.
So we had to get a little bit more creative because some of them were of a nationality that their representation in that country was very minor footprint. So
Yeah.
you have to be creative with these
Yeah.
approaches,
Yeah,
and
and
you
that's
have to think
that's
of your
another
client.
aspect. That's another aspect of the industry is travel security.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's some companies have entire teams that are dedicated to nothing but travel security. You know, gathering intelligence. Because some companies have a huge international footprint and offices all over the world and employees who have to travel all over the world, and they'll have whole teams dedicated to you know gathering intelligence about what's going on where, and then figuring out, okay, do we have people there? Okay, what do we do? Where do we get them to? Developing just that whole process, and that was another thing. Like again, when I was newer in the industry, I didn't really realize how much actually had to go into that. And it's just like, oh my goodness, yeah, that's a lot of work.
There
So
is. Yeah.
it's there's a science behind everything we do. That's what a lot of non-security people don't really realize. They think again, oh, guns, gates, and guards.
That's right.
Um, but it's like no, there's a science behind it. I mean, hell, you have other security professionals who specialize in CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, and most people don't know what that is. It's like, hey, if you design your environment a certain way, that can actually have a huge, significant positive impact on your security posture because you are, you know, making someone behave a certain way because just, hey, you have this row of hedges lined up along the sidewalk. Well, guess what? That's guiding someone to the main entrance so they're not cutting through and going through a side entrance or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, yeah, there's a science behind it, and it's also an art form because again, you have to also be uh, you have to learn that you have to be flexible for sure. You can't just have a hard stance one way or the other. Um,
No.
you know, yeah, you might have rules in place, and those rules might get broken. But it's like, okay, you also have to consider the situation. What is everything that happened behind it? What
That's right.
caused this, and then go from there. So
Which is a great point. We used to do after an incident, and it could be almost any incident, from a medical to a theft, a loss, whatever. We would do after action reports or
yeah,
after action reviews, where
yeah,
we had
great
unfortunately we had
point.
an employee shortly after I started at NVIDIA. We had an employee's spouse pass away on campus, and the security team responded, and I responded, and we did a lot of things on that scene to revive that patient. But afterwards, rather than just cutting everybody loose and be like, okay, see you guys tomorrow, it was like everybody come. I'm paying for the overtime. Come
Yeah,
into the office. Let's decompress.
yeah,
And because folks have an emotional reaction that we need to be mindful of, especially during a
hmm
high stress situation. And not only did I needed them to decompress a little bit, and we ended up getting counselors for people and doing those things. But I really wanted to review the steps that had occurred and why they
yeah,
had occurred. For example, my investigator was the one who found the patient first, and rather than calling security dispatch, who could then call the police as per the protocol, or excuse me, call fire as per the protocol,
yeah,
he ended up calling me, and I was like, I answer the phone, and he tells me what he sees, and I said, call dispatch right now. And because I knew better than calling 911, because when you say, hey, I'm at 123 Main Street on this gigantic campus with 7,000 employees.
Yeah.
Fire is not going to find it. So
Yeah.
we needed dispatch to talk to fire, to guide them in, and have security patrols be staged at the entrances to bring fire in, right?
Exactly.
And so when we did our after action, those kind of things came out, those kind of positive discussions happened. And I find that, as long as you're keeping it non-accusatory, right, that's really important. But people have to learn. You have to give them space to make mistakes, but not
Yep.
fatal mistakes, and then guide them to, okay, hey, this is why we do it this way, or this is why we recommend you do it that way. And there were a lot of good things that happened in this situation, and we were able to highlight those things and talk about, okay, what do we need to do to be better prepared? Do we need an AED someplace else on campus?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had to run all the way to a lobby to go get it,
Yeah.
And those are the kind of conversations that we had, and so after actions, I mean, you did them in the military, so did I, and they're very formal in the military.
Yeah.
And they're used as like
Yeah.
a beating stick, but I think we can
Yeah.
use them differently in the private
Oh,
sector.
absolutely. I mean, I think after action reviews are so important, especially in our industry, because it helps you learn. It helps you find out, okay, where can we improve? And I try to do, an after action report after almost any type of incident. I don't care if it's minor or small, because I'm documenting it anyway. So it's like I might as well go back and review the steps that I took, that other people took, and be like, okay, did we do everything we should have done, could have done? Is there something we could have done differently? And even if it's something minor, it's like, okay, well, that could make a huge difference later on down the road. So, but again, I think there's this, if you're watching this and you're interested in getting into corporate security, or changing, your role in the security field, do your research and reach out to counterparts, ask questions, reach out to people, in different professions, and find out, hey, ask them the question, hey, what do you like about your job? What do you not like about your job? What would you change? But, just do your research, and there's a whole lot of different things you can do. Just don't think that, if I want to get into security, well, then I have to be corporate security and I have to sit at a desk, and just like, no, you can do so many different things. I mean, if you, go back for the example, if you have EP experience, or you really like doing that work, or you're coming out of the military and you want to do that work, some of these corporations have entire EP teams. Facebook has an EP team. Google, Apple, all those huge companies have huge protection teams that do nothing but protect their executives. So there's that too. So it's just get a look around, dig around, Google search, different security jobs in the area, and you're going to see a whole bunch of different hits. And take your time and read through some of those job descriptions, and kind of see, hey, what lines up with your skills and your interests, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. You want to go someplace where you're going to be successful, and if you don't like standing around or driving, people around at all hours of the day or night, maybe EP is not for you. If you don't like looking at endless camera footage for, stolen earpods off of somebody's desk, maybe investigation's not for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a security investigation. There's all kinds of different investigations that
so
you can
many
do in the private sector, but there's and that's what I think is great. The sector is that, unlike public safety or in government and the military, you kind of get locked into your role in those careers. In security, if you want to work, to your point, EP for a couple of years, you can do that. If you want to go do investigation for a couple of years, you can do that. Security leadership's there, security technology's there. So I have always felt, because I like doing a bunch of different things, being well-rounded, there's so many different opportunities.
So many different opportunities. Yeah, so many.
And your day looks different almost every day.
Every day. And
you try to have a plan, but that usually goes out the window by Friday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and I'm sitting here kind of reflecting on our conversation we've had, and everything we've talked about, and some of the stuff we talk about, and when people think security, again, they think, so exciting, so sexy, blah blah blah, and going back to the EP example, it's like, oh, so cool, you get to protect people and get fights. Like, yeah, but that's such a minor part of the job.
Yep.
Most of it is, hey, you're doing your advanced work, or
Right.
you're sitting there just literally waiting on the client, on the asset or the principal for how long? They could
That's
be
right.
in a meeting for 4 hours. Well, guess what you're doing for 4 hours? You're sitting
You're
there.
sitting there.
So,
Yep.
um,
And you can't go
but
anywhere. You
yeah,
can't go to the
there's
bathroom.
exactly. I mean,
You
yes,
just gotta wait.
when there are a lot of things we get to do that are a lot of fun and a lot of interesting, but there's also a lot of most of the time it's just like, oh, okay, just my mundane admin stuff, or okay, well, I have to go check on this and do these little things. But again, I mean, I personally I enjoy every minute of it for the most part. I love what I do, and I love that I get to do it every day.
And you probably have good leadership as well, I would imagine. Sometimes I think people get into roles where their leadership doesn't care about what they're doing or doesn't give them the
Yeah,
level of attention they think they deserve, and probably do. Um, but that's that. But what's important, I think, come out with your experience, Kevin, is that it's out there. You can find something where somebody appreciates you, somebody's going to listen to you.
absolutely,
You did a lot of different things before you got there, though. And so,
exactly.
for people that are coming into the industry, be open to different things and don't feel stuck. That's
Yeah,
that's been something I've been working on with people the last, really over the last year, is especially with the pandemic. People feel like, oh, there's no opportunities. I can't go anywhere. I
hmm
can't do what I want to do. There are tons of opportunities. You just have to be willing to maybe
the
take
legwork
a
of
little bit
yeah,
more risk, right? You've got to
exactly.
move potentially. You've got to go
Yeah,
take a lesser role potentially. You know,
yeah, yeah,
there's just
exactly.
a lot going on. There always will be. Security is not going away anytime soon. We are not going to be replaced by robots.
Nope,
Not within the next 10 years, anyways. I don't think. But we should all be aware of robotics in security. Maybe
absolutely.
we talked a little bit about that, I guess, last time.
Yeah, a little bit last time,
Yeah.
but
But this is the day in the life conversation. So there's tons of opportunities out there for people.
yeah, a lot of opportunities, a lot of things you can do, a lot of fun things to do. But yeah, just put yourself out there and just see what's around, and again, get yourself a mentor. It doesn't have to be, when I say mentor, it doesn't have to be someone older than you or younger, whatever. Just someone that you respect in the industry and that you can ask questions and they're knowledgeable. Can maybe provide you some of that guidance. That's what I had. When I when I came to Kansas and trying to get in the industry, I reached out to people. I randomly. Like the way I got connected with security folks in Kansas is because when I was in graduate school, I reached out to the military liaison at KU. I said, "Hey, returning, here's what I'm trying to do." He said, "Well, hey, come and talk to me." And he gave me a list of people to reach out to in the
There you
industry.
go.
I, threw a bunch of emails out, had a few bite, and they, one of them like really took me under his wing. He's like, "Okay, hey, here's what you should do if you're trying to get into this world." And and he's still another good friend of mine. And yeah, like I probably have 3 or 4 like really just awesome mentors in the security field. I used to work with all of them at my previous company, and now we're all kind of in different places. But I still talk to all 3 of them a lot, and I still call them up for questions all the time. I'm like, hey, I'm dealing with this situation. What do you recommend? Because they've been there and done that. They have that experience. And being able to ask them those questions and have those guys in my pocket, not in my pocket, but being able to reach out to
Yeah,
them,
you can call them,
it,
and yeah,
that's that's the reason that I've been able to be successful. It's because I've been able to surround myself with people who are also want me to succeed. So
one thing that you said, which I like, is older or younger mentors. Don't be afraid, of older,
mhm,
younger mentors. And I totally agree with you. I actually try to seek out mentorship opportunities from younger people, especially we have a new generation that, by the way, they'll tell you what they think, whether you want to
mhm.
know what they think or not.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, okay,
yeah. I mean,
but
I think it's just. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I had experience with some people in my Global Security Operations Center in our GSOC, and it was really good. They're doing this role every day, this job every day, and I had a misunderstanding with what it took to do something what I thought was simple was not so simple. like clearing a security alarm, a door forced or door held alarm.
Mhm.
I thought wrongly that was pretty easy to clear. Like, why is this taking several minutes to clear? And so I walked into the GSOC and I relieved one of the GSOC operators so that he could go take a break. And I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. I'm going to see what all this trouble is. And it took me probably 15 minutes to clear a door forced alarm.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know the system as well as they do, and they're much more proficient at it. But it taught me to listen more than I speak, especially for the people that are out there doing it. And because their opinion does matter.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they do
Yeah.
have a philosophy, they have a focus, they're bright people. And, so I learned a lot from that. I do seek out folks who are younger than me to help me understand what that generation's going through and what they're going through personally.
Absolutely. And I think it is so important. And I remember a few years ago, kind of getting started in here and all that. I remember just feeling like so out of place because I'd go to work or I'd go to these project sites and all these security people would be like, guys are pretty much significantly older than me. And it's like they've been doing this forever.
Right.
And I remember sometimes I would speak up and they'd look at me like, the hell's this young guy now? But it is important to listen to the younger folks because I remember the first time I actually felt like validated as a security professional is when I went to this project site and it was a value study for this client. And so I'm the one security guy on this value study team and everyone else is an engineer and architect. And I remember on our final day giving the briefing of our recommendations and why, standing up there in front of 30 people, and they had a huge security, like these 5 executives that were dedicated to just security. And I'm sitting there giving my recommendations, and I felt validated when I saw all 5 of them going, yeah, that makes sense. and then to learn a year later that they actually implemented my recommendations, I was like, oh man, that's awesome.
That is validation.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This has been a great conversation too, and what I'll say to the folks that take their time out of their busy day to watch these posts on LinkedIn is let us know what's you're thinking about. Both Kevin and I, we've got a lot of experience that we'd love to impart. Tell us what kind of challenges you're facing, and we'll see if we can talk about it and see if we can give you some ideas on how to work through those challenges. But that's where I'll leave it. Kevin, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, absolutely, guy. Definitely enjoyed this. I know this video is a little longer, so if you have to watch this in segments, yeah, great. I just appreciate it. If you watched the first 5 minutes, I appreciated it. But yeah, reach out to us if any questions or ideas on next topics. I mean, I know I'm always trying to learn. So if sometime during this video you picked out a mistake I said, hey, let me know because I'm always trying to learn as well. So I firmly believe that people call me, like in my company, people call me the expert, and I never believe that anyone's ever truly an expert because you're always learning. You're constantly learning new things. You can constantly improve on your trade. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and you will be successful.
Awesome. Great way to leave it. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Good catch up with you and having coffee with a corporate security leader. Thanks, buddy.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot, and Scott, appreciate it, man. And I'll talk to you next time.
Take care.
All right, later.